Welcome to Digital to Foot Traffic. I am Kevin Shi.
And I am Scott Jensen. We are digital marketers with massive experience in running brick and mortar stores.
Join us each episode as we explore the latest digital marketing trends and uncover strategies from the best in the industry.
Okay, welcome to the first episode of Digital to Foot Traffic. My name is Kevin Shi. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, Scott Jensen. How are you, Scott?
Good. How about you today?
Fine, thank you. So let's talk about background. Why are we doing this podcast? How we met, and what's up with this podcast? Originally, I was some background about myself first. I run SC Storage. Is probably one of the biggest self-storage in Hong Kong with a few like around 50, 60 sites, and we have been doing this for 16 years. And Scott is much bigger than me in terms of self-storage, and he's been in other business that's related to retail. Can you explain a bit?
Oh, you're too nice. I've been working in marketing for, since 1996 or so, and so wherever we're at now. So a fair amount of time, but I've worked in a number of different businesses, including self-storage in the States, as well as other retail businesses, primarily working in marketing, driving people from digital marketing into retail locations. So it's a big part of what I've been doing for a long time. I think that this is important because it's really useful. Digital marketing is really useful in a bunch of different ways, but the example I like to use here a lot is a couple of years ago, you and I, Kevin, have kind of met and done things over the years. One of the things we've done is skiing, and I was skiing a couple of years ago on a separate occasion, and not being very good, but still enjoying it quite. I was skiing on the hill and got a little bit too close to a tree and knocked my goggles off. When I came to, literally, I had to figure out where my goggles were, and I couldn't find them. So I ended up driving down the mountain back to my house. And when I got home, I was checking Facebook for something, and I happened to see an ad for the ski goggles that I had been wearing and lost earlier that day. Well, it's because I had registered that I liked Solomon and that I was a skier and that I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. All those things kind of came together for them to show me that ad. Well, I was able to order the ad. Order was from the ad, and they arrived. They got shipped to my house, and they arrived before I went skiing later on that week, which is perfect. That's exactly how marketing and digital marketing is supposed to work: is be able to find the person at the right time, at the right moment, to get them what they need. Right. So for me, that's what this is about: is how do we make sure that we get the right product to the right person at the right time, and eliminate waste and make it a good experience for people.
A little background about myself. I've been doing this self-storage for 16 years. We started with one, and we kept on growing organically. A lot of difference, a lot of I'd say advantages of my company is I was pretty forward-thinking in a sense that we caught on the digital marketing platforms ahead of my competition. So prior, when I first started, everybody was in a newspaper, classified ads, a lot of yellow pages. And then we were the first one in Hong Kong to be listed in Yahoo. Back then, there was not even a Google yet. So that's how long I've been doing this. I'm not as good as Scott in the sense I'm more rounded as a retailer. But as I caught on, as I was doing more and more and more. And how I met Scott was actually I've been studying digital marketing like via YouTube or by myself, basically. And then I caught onto a video, an interview that Scott did with Google. I go, wow, this guy knows a lot. and then because we have an association, so we invited him to speak in our association, a self-storage association in Tokyo, I think about 3 years ago. And then back then, since we became friends, and he was a mentor and a teacher for me for digital. And I tell you, I thought I knew a lot about marketing, and I probably did compared to the guy next door in Hong Kong. But I only scratched the surface of what there's to know, and especially for retailers, because there's a distinction. Do you agree between like people who are just selling stuff online and people like with physical locations? Because there are many things that people who just selling things online don't have to worry about versus us. For example, I remember one time you told us that you have to get all the addresses correct. And there's companies that do that for you. That helps you to get all your 10, 20 stores addresses correct. Otherwise, if there's discrepancies, Google will rank you down. Can you elaborate on things like the difference between digital marketing for online businesses and retailers, please?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit for the understanding. Well, for the understanding of marketing that you have, and second, for just your enormous curiosity. We've been talking for some time, and I've always enjoyed our conversations, and mostly because of your just enormous curiosity to learn something new, and you push learn new things so I can bring them back to you as well. So first of all, I think you need to give yourself more credit there. But yeah, let's talk about that for just a minute. Digital marketing is different from traditional marketing, and anybody I think listening to this is going to understand that. But there are some nuances to this and understanding how they work that impact how you may or may not run your business. And that's a good example that you gave, and we can elaborate on that one a little bit, which is the search engines, Google, Yahoo, Baidu, all of those are looking to verify your business through and rank your business based on how well they trust the data they have on your particular business. So as an example, if you have your address out listed in Yellow Pages and through some of the index services, whether those be something like, say, there's a bunch of different business listing services that are out there, they all may have slightly different addresses for you. Well, the search engines are going to consume that, and if the data doesn't match up, whether the phone number or the address or your hours of operation or the name of the business, they don't match up, then the search engine is going to look at that and say, well, we don't trust this as much, so we're not going to rank it or list it as we would if all that data it was the same. One of the places where that comes to really bite people is with phone numbers. Oftentimes people use a tracking phone number in an ad that they have on Yelp or with a particular Yellow Page, and because they want to track what kind of traffic am I getting from this and what are the results from that. But what happens if you're not using a tracking phone number correctly is that phone number doesn't match up against your business listing phone number, and then someone like Google may get that listing and say, wait a minute, we have two different phone numbers. We don't know which one to trust, so we're not going to rank this as high. So there's some things you can do, and we can get into those more later, about how you to track your phone number in some instances. But yeah, having your data clean is one of those things that's really important to digital marketing, especially when you are doing, as we were talking about, driving people from clicks, like computers, smartphones, social media, to your physical location, and marrying those two worlds up together. Yeah, there's a lot of nuances, and you've hit on a couple there for sure.
Okay, let's go back a step or two, because digital marketing, I think what we just discussed, is a bit advanced for a lot of the retailers, especially like bosses who own stores. Let's go back to people like who's been running retailers for a while now, and they've always been, just say they have like 10 stores, 15 stores, and they can afford a bit of a budget. So traditionally, they always be like front page of a newspaper or a TV. And a lot of these people continue to do that. Sure, they would test digital marketing, but the problem with them testing is they use very, very little money, and digital marketing is a game where if you use too little money for just one or two tests, you can't not really measure the results. So what would you say would be like some of the key differences or benefits of using digital marketing as switched to TV or Yellow Page? I guess your in-person experience, because that's how you guys transform your storage company from TV ad and Yellow Page to all digital. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so it's a great comment and question. You're correct. When I first started working at Extra Space Storage, which is the self-storage company I worked for in the States, they were still spending an enormous amount on Yellow Pages. And during my tenure there, we transitioned completely out of Yellow Pages. We still spent a little bit on White Pages in order to be able to maintain our phone numbers, referencing back to what we talked about a minute ago. But transitioned all that into digital marketing for three reasons. And we can talk about these in more detail, not only today, but I think future episodes as well. But first of all, it's measurable. Second, it's targetable, meaning that you can target ads to specific people at specific times and places. And third, well, it's not a word, it's testable as well. So those three things, measurable, targetable, and testable. I was just rereading some notes that I had at attending a conference from the gentleman who ran the Barack Obama re-election campaign a couple of years ago. I was attending a conference in D.C. that he spoke at, and he talked about being able to, what they did is they targeted every American in the United States, and they ranked them based on three classifications. They looked at things, the first one was, what was their likelihood to vote? And they scored them 1 to 100. What was their likelihood to vote for Barack Obama? 1 to 100. And then what was their likelihood to change their vote? 1 to 100. They took those three metrics and they said, then they matched them against what they felt like were their hot button issues? Were they interested in environment? Were they interested in world affairs? Were they interested in the economy? And then they started targeting ads to each individual person as they went through. That was never possible before. You could never go down a individual street or apartment building and look at every single different apartment or every single house on a street and say, hey, this person's interested in this particular subject, and we can cater a message specifically to them, and versus their next door neighbor who is something else. That's all possible with digital media, and it can be used to market your business. So, Kevin, in your case, where you have self-storage properties, we can go back and say this particular person is interested in storing business equipment. They renovate houses, and so they need to store business equipment. So you can create an ad that tailors specifically for them, versus the next person who maybe lives right next door to them is more interested in storing their seasonal clothing. They have a small apartment and they need to store their coats during the summer, and they need to store their summer wear in the winter, and you can target an ad specifically to them. That's never been possible before, and it makes it a lot more efficient.
But would there be like a counter argument for cities like Hong Kong or New York, for example, like Manhattan Mini Storage, for example, which is one of our operators in New York? When the city is so dense and there's so many people, the CPA, the cost per acquisition, would reach a point where it's cheaper to do like a non-digital, like a billboard, than digital, because there is minimum fee for Google or Facebook, and there is inflation for those bid prices, right? Although you can target. If the service is generic enough that targeting is not such an issue, and the population is dense enough where there's just enough people watching TV or billboards, then there may be an argument for that. What do you think about that?
I think absolutely. Although I think that's a better question for you, having worked in what I have found is a little bit of a unique market in Hong Kong. And I'm curious for you, how have you married those two things? Because you've done a bunch of traditional marketing with TV and bus advertising, and you've also been doing quite a bit of digital advertising. How are you deciding where you marry those two things together?
For my case, since I have so many locations and it's all across Hong Kong, and since storage is quite easy to understand, then if we marry an offline marketing such as TV and billboards, then our SEO goes up higher. Then our CPA goes up lower, because when they search for mini storage and my name pops up, then they remember from the TV ads and from the bus ads, then they'll click on us higher. So our quality score goes higher. So it works in sync. It definitely works in sync. It's not one channel, but again, I agree with you. TV and billboard is not measurable. I mean, we do kind of measure it by asking, hey, where have you seen our billboard before? So it's probably definitely not a last click conversion, but maybe like maybe one or two that before that. But having said that, having TV and mini bus ads and billboard ads and then digital marketing would definitely make our digital marketing more effective in a density like Hong Kong, and then assume like maybe even London or New York.
I think you're right. That leads to a couple of questions that I think maybe the audience may want to know more about. You referenced, first of all, that when you're doing both together, digital advertising and traditional TV advertising, that you're seeing an improvement on click-through rate. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more? Do you want to define click-through rate and what you're seeing the difference there being?
Click-through rate is when people are shown my ads, either paid search like in Google search engine or Yahoo, and they click it. Just for example, if it's 1%, that means 100 times they've seen my ad and they click on it 1%. If it's 2%, that means they've seen my ads 200 times and they've clicked on my ad. Now having my name everywhere, like in TVs and display, make them remember my brand name. So that's what they also mean, like by brand keywords. So if my brand is up there, they remember it, they trust it, so they'll click more likely. And this is good for me, because then I don't have too much wastage. And it's also, the search engine will know that, the more numbers of this company would be ranked like maybe only 100 times and is shown will be clicked through, like customers are satisfied with the result more, that then they'll award us with a higher quality score, which means that it's cheaper for us to buy those clicks versus our competitors. So yes, in hindsight, testing, that means a good TV and a good mini bus campaign would help my digital marketing effort. But I would stress, and this is what I do every year, we would have one campaign every year. So everything would have to look the same. So the customer experience should be the same. For example, these 2 years has been a bit complicated. I won't get into that. But 3 years ago, 3 years ago, our ad was, the house is getting so small. Why don't you rent a storage now? Because the government's policy to build smaller houses. So we had a really funny ad on TV of the house, getting really small and they can't afford to buy a big house. So we proposed that they rent a mini storage after. But then afterwards, the minibus ad, the billboard ads must look exactly like the TV ads. And then the slogan that we have on our digital marketing, like our search and everything, has to in sync with the TV ad. So everything is one customer experience. Because in my experience, and I think Scott would agree, when people look at your ad, especially displays and all that, how long do they give you? 2 seconds? Not even. 1. And if they remember you, then it clicks right away. So that's how long it takes for for them to get a good impression of you. That's why everything has to be consistent to make your ad campaign powerful. I guess this is similar to like even for non-digital ads. What's your comment, Scott?
So yeah, I think we should do a couple of things. We should definitely do an episode about customer experience. It's super important and something that we should spend a lot more time on. But let's go back and talk about quality score for just a minute and provide some clarification. And I will make a note here to reference it as well in the notes for this podcast. Quality score is the score that Google uses, and it's undergone some changes in the last couple of years, but it's the score that Google uses to determine the cost of your bid when you're bidding for a keyword. And we can go into a lot more detail. In fact, we have notes to do a whole pod on paid search. But quality score is basically your bid times your quality score, and your quality score is a measurement of several things, which is Google's prediction on someone likely to click on your ad. And a lot of that has to do with, your brand. If you have some brand recognition, somebody is more likely to click on your ad than somebody else's. And so the marrying of that off and online, or those people who are doing both, especially in markets where it makes sense to do so, have an advantage there. Absolutely. I agree with that. And it builds on that customer experience. And you were exactly right. Carrying that customer experience from your traditional media to your digital media to your in-store experience will do quite a bit to help increase your overall conversion rate, which lowers your cost per acquisition overall, and is the reason why you do that. So I think you're absolutely right.
So what do you think? How do you think we should break down our upcoming episodes? I mean, me and Scott have some ideas. I think we should do an episode on some. I think right now on this episode, I think we should explain in our views, what if somebody's starting out their digital campaign and they have no experience, or they want to have a massive overall makeup of their digital presence. What should be something they should focus on? Is it like should they do like a fast mobile website first, and then they should set up their conversion funnel accurate so they can measure stuff? Then they start doing the paid search, because a lot of like these retailers, based on my experience, they would be bought into other people who are selling them stuff like display or Facebook advertising.
Oh yeah.
And they don't have any conversions done, and then all their matrix is oh, my friend saw my ad, and that's BS, So what would be the good what would be a few good steps that you think would be relevant?
Oh, so let's use this as a thought experiment. If you and I were going to start a new business tomorrow, and what would be from a marketing standpoint, what would be the first thing that we should do? And in reality, I'm kind of going through this process right now with another project, but let's talk about that. First thing I think I do be to outline a marketing strategy, right? So I would say this is the type of business that I'm going to do. If it's business to business sales, if it's business to consumer sales, if it's what we're talking about specifically here, a retail location where we want to drive people to it, I would look at what type of business am I operating? And in this case, let's stick with the theme here, which is that we've got a retail business and we want to drive customers to our retail business to shop or to purchase. So we start with a marketing plan, and it looks at things like where typically within this type of business, retail, your customers come from a radius around your business, right? They're not coming from, you're not an online shop. You're really wanting to drive people to your local location. So you want to look at what are things that I can do that will drive, that I know that my market isn't, whether it's 5 miles outside of or kilometers outside of my business, if it's 100 kilometers outside of my business, whatever it is, I want to focus my marketing on those people specifically. Back in the day, a long time ago, when Google and Bing and Microsoft at the time first started doing this, you could target your ads by country. It was the most that you could do. It's gotten more and more refined to now you can target by device. You can find somebody in a lot of cases on their mobile device specifically, and you can target if they're within a radius of your actual location. That's a big step forward than we ever had before.
Is the postal code search still functional? Are they still doing that right now? Like you enter your postal.
Yes, they are.
Okay, and it's driving a lot of, and I think that's another good key points, the difference between like a digital marketing for online stores and retailers, because there's a lot of wastages if you don't know the difference. You may be advertising somebody in Africa or even somebody in a different city. And that's no use, because customers, 90% of customers comes from whatever radius, like a 5 mile, 6 mile radius. They're not going to drive 10 blocks just because you have the stuff when they can have it next door. So knowing that would eliminate a lot of money. You can save a lot of money on your search if you know how to filter properly.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, exactly. We should go into much more detail on that at some point as well. We keep teasing future podcasts, which is great. Okay, so the first thing I do is create a marketing plan that help define some of these things. In that, I would also include who is my market. If I'm selling women's clothing, then are women my target market? They might be. They might not be. It might be their significant others that are trying to buy them something. If you're like a lingerie shop, for example, maybe it's a significant other. Am I looking at more, maybe older people? Am I looking at younger people? I would define all of those things in advance. And then I would start to map out the next thing I would do, I guess in that case, would map out my website and say I would design my website around who my target market is and my product to answer the questions about my product for my target market. So because of the business that you're in, we often use storage, right? And storage is typically driven by people who have life-changing events. Whether there's been a birth in the family, there's been a marriage, there's been somebody going off to school, they're moving, there's been a death in the family. One of those things is typically driving the need for storage. And in those cases, people who come in have a lot of questions. And the ones that you and I talk about quite a bit are the differences between men and women when they're shopping for storage. Men are typically looking for something that's convenient because they don't want to spend all day doing this. They already are getting stuck doing this. It's not something that's high on their priority list. They want to come in and get it over with. So we talk about the convenience of it. Hey, we're going to make this easy for you to get in and out. You can come in, you can load your stuff in. You've got easy access to an elevator, whatever it may be. If it's a female, though, they're more interested in security, not security of their belongings, but security of themselves. And so we want to ensure them, hey, we've got great lighting. We've got on-facility security personnel. We have alarms for everything. And then in the next case, both of them ask about the safety of their belongings. Are my belongings going to be safe? And so when you're designing a website, you can design it to speak to both men and women and understand their needs in both cases, and then you build down from there. So that would be the next thing I would do, would build a website that speaks to the needs of my customers and helping them to be able to make the decision that's right for them.
So you should not spend any money on Facebook advertising and getting likes and all that.
No, that would come later down. You ask what would be the order there, and first I'd make the marketing plan, then I'd build the website, and then I would start to decide. Then I would probably move into, as part of the website, SEO, exactly, where I'm writing some content specifically for my industry as it pertains to my specific location. Again, we're talking about a radius around your location in most cases.
Yeah, get some links from nearby shops or related from important people first. But I would assume get all the free or get all the earn stuff first. So there's difference between paid traffic, earned traffic, and owned traffic, right? So get all your earned and owned traffic in order first before you start fiddling with pay. Otherwise, you'll be wasting a lot of bullets.
Yeah, I agree. Now the paid or the earned traffic does take some time to accumulate, and that's the nice thing about the paid traffic is that it's an on-off switch. You can turn it on and off in an hour if you want to, get it set up, and then turn it on and off within seconds if you choose to. So, depending on the time and resources you have, you can be building them both simultaneously. But because the paid stuff can happen much more quickly if needed, right? But I would concentrate on some SEO, some of the earned traffic, because while it's not free, because you still have to spend time writing and getting the articles, it is less expensive in the long run than paid search is going to be.
there is a chart that I sent you before, the 9 ladders of digital marketing success, that shows you the order they should do it, and it's pretty similar along the line that we've discussed. How you make like a functional website first with the mobile ready and mobile speed, and then you go out with like maybe SEO and then email, and then you start exploring like some search and all that. Maybe we'll put that into our website, and then we can have our listeners to take a look at it. I think that one pretty sums up pretty well of what we both agreed on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great part and something that would be useful.
And then I think for an upcoming episode, the distinction about retargeting. How about having a picture of a pretty woman and a picture of a woman that's about normal. I think that's a classic. I think that's a classic episode in itself. Is that a remarketing episode that we're gonna do?
Yeah, we should do that one as well. Absolutely.
Every time I talk about that one to people in presentations, people get a laugh on it. One word of warning, though: if you do have a presentation to show in class, make sure you don't show anybody that is among your friends, because sometimes they may be in the classroom. Okay, so I guess basically in the upcoming episodes, we'll do an episode on an SEO, and then the website design, and then pay search and a customer experience, and then we can start interviewing some key people that maybe me and Scott knows, especially Scott in terms of in his realm with his dealing with all the big guys like Google or Facebook, or maybe some of the smaller companies who does niche things. Because all these small companies, they have these niche, and once you get enough size and scale, they do serve a particular function. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I think you and I have passed back and forth several lists of people that we want to get on to have these discussions with us. That's some people who are really excited that I've known for a number of years, who I consider to be experts in the field. And I absolutely think that there's some details and some nuances to all of this that when you understand it goes a long way. I think that, and you and I have talked about this a lot, that I think a lot of people consider or think of the internet as kind of the great equalizer. And I disagree with that. I think that because people have come in as human nature to do and tried to oftentimes, for lack of a better term, game the system or try to do things to manipulate the system to their advantage, then the search engines have had to become more and more complicated over time. In addition, people want more and more ability to do things. So that's one of the things we referenced earlier was you used to only be able to target by country, and now you can target by gender, age, affinity level, by device, by radius around a location. That's all possible to do today, where you couldn't do that even 5 years ago, right? And because of that level of sophistication, it requires more and more time, resources, energy, money to do this. It's not an equalizer. The people who do this at a large scale and do it really well have a lot of resources. And what we're trying to do is expose people to those so that they can utilize them themselves. I think much easier than they may have realized in the past.
Can I ask you like a basic question? Just say if I'm a retailer with a few stores and I don't know anything about digital marketing, and I start talking to some digital marketing agencies around my areas. What's your advice? How to know the good ones from the bad ones? Should you find a generic one where they'll do all the solutions for you, like display, Facebook, search and SEO, or should you find a niche, like a specialist in each area? And how can you tell when people are talking fluff to you? I guess you both know, but can you elaborate on that? Like, what kind of things would they say to you that this is BS? And what kind of things? How can you tell the good ones from the bad ones if I'm a retailer?
Oh yeah, this is a great question. We should actually probably invite some BS ones on just so people can hear it. That'd be funny.
Oh, I know a lot of those. Trust me, man.
This is a great question. To me, the first thing I would start with is my budget, and I've spent a lot of time in my career growing internal kind of search agencies for companies. So start off, the example, when I started with Extra Space, it was me and half a developer were running digital, and we grew that department significantly. I've done that time and time again, and it starts with, I think, budget. If you're spending, say, a modest amount, which is, say you're spending $1,000 a month, then probably going with a boutique agency that does everything at once is a good place to start. All right. And then that way you get in, you get your feet wet, You start to learn some of the things. You get the reporting. You start asking questions, and then you start to see which channels or which combinations of channels work. You may say, hey, I'm getting a lot of traffic at a good cost through my SEO program. Is there a way for me? And you go back to your agencies and you show that and you recognize it and you say, hey, there's some ways for me to expand this. And if their answers are not detailed, if they don't have an immediate plan or a way to expand that right away, then you know, I probably tap these guys out, and you go start looking for a specific SEO agency. And there are a bunch of different types of SEO agencies. There's SEO agencies that are specific to local. There's SEO agencies that are specific to customer experience. It depends really on going back to that marketing plan that you write up, what you want to accomplish there. And actually, Kevin, I don't think it'd be a bad idea for you and I to take some questions on this and address them if people have them. I'm happy to do that as well as we go through this.
Yeah, we are working on a website, and we do plan to open up on our Facebook fan page. So please do leave us a review when we have one later, and give us some 5 stars. And we should have like a process in this in each episode where we answer questions. But going back to your SEO, one thing I like to elaborate on this is a very common trap in Hong Kong is these guarantee fixed spots, and I don't know if it's common in America. So they would have a very niche word, like just say mini storage, right? They would have mini storage guntong, yep. Right? So the search traffic is really, really low. But for a retailer who has no digital sense or experience, they wouldn't know, and then they would come up and tell you, oh, we can guarantee you'll rank number 1 on this digital guntong, this area. If you pay us $5,000 a month, and typically if it's $5,000 a month, their markup is usually 50 to 100%. So they just tested, the average cost to be on number 1 position is probably $2,000. The market of 100%, $5,000, and they guarantee you. And then they would fluff, oh, this is very highly sought after traffic. You would get it, and people would pay for it. And then in my experience, especially in Hong Kong, anything that's guaranteed fixed position is a ripoff, because they know the cost and they just mark it up 100%. You guys have that in the West?
I think those. Well, I'd like to say those have mostly gone away, but you're probably right. They still exist. My response to that has always been, wait, do you own Google? So that's the only way you could guarantee this is if you own Google, right? And I don't run to that as much as I used to, and it may be because we deal at a different scale. But yeah, if somebody's trying to guarantee you something like that they don't personally own or have control over, I would be very suspicious of. So that I would avoid. You have to remember that Google is its entity of itself. In fact, I would avoid if somebody comes up to you and says, we will get you first page ranking or number 1 ranking in a month. That doesn't happen. Google has triggers in place to prevent sites from moving up too quickly in the rankings, that you can't go from page 7 to page 1 in a week. Their algorithms, even if you went and did everything right, and we'll talk about this more in our SEO episodes, even if you do everything right overnight, you're still not going to get that first page ranking that time. Google won't let that happen. So I would be very wary of that.
Are you more worried about Bing than Google? Because in my experience, especially in Hong Kong or Asia anyways, Bing can be manipulated manually by people. And I've heard about like these shadow agencies in China that when they just click away your clicks if they don't meet the target. For Bing, not for Google though. What's your have you heard anything on this?
Yeah, so yes, I have quite a bit. You're right. Back several years ago, whether it be 5, 6, 10 years ago, there used to be a lot of things you could do to Google, to manipulate the results. And they've gotten really good to the point where anybody who comes to me with some manipulation scheme, I usually just ignore, because one, in the long run, I like to play the long game. I don't like to play the short game with my clients or with the stuff that I'm doing. I will ignore them and move on. Being by their own admission, when you talk to a lot of their representatives, they recognize that they're a couple of years behind Google in a number of areas, although they have made a ton of strides. They are catching up in a lot of ways. And that's another one. We should have another one about how you would challenge Google. If you were a search company and you wanted to challenge kind of the dominance of Google, how you would do it. One of the ways that Bing is approaching it is through the device. I think we recognize that Google owns search, but there are some ways around that, which are things like Alexa Home System, right? Which is the Amazon Home Assistant that you can get that is powered by Bing. And so when you search on Alexa, they are Bing results that are coming in, and there are bots that are being written that allow you to do everything from order an Uber to order a delivery food service to order a rental car to plane tickets and local services as well. And you will want to rank well for those. I know I've got a little off topic on your question, and I'm coming right back to it, but we should have a whole conversation about that at some point down the road as well. I would say that Bing is probably still a little bit susceptible to being manipulated, although those days are coming to an end quickly, considering how fast they're moving and how quickly their algorithm's coming along. And I don't like to play that short game anyway. I like to play the long game, which I think is going to mean that not something you're going to be able to sustain for very long.
I give you an example. I don't really trust Bing in Hong Kong because I know them personally, and especially when they're drunk and they tell me stuff. Anyways, that's off to that episode. But I had personal experience where we have where I was looking at my Google Analytics at the end of the month. Okay, at the very end of the month, you would see your click-through rate goes up the roof. The number of clicks that you're paying for goes up the roof. At the same time, the actual conversion goes down. So it's like a cross, So anytime happens, suddenly you see number of clicks goes up dramatically and your actual conversion goes down, something's fishy. Something's fishy, right?
Absolutely.
And then I call them. I go, hey, who do you think I am, man? I mean, you can't have this kind of cross thing in my graph, And this is a bug in the air. Was more like this is the end of the quarter. You're trying to meet target, man. Anyways, I didn't say that to them in case our future episode have any Bing or Yahoo guys coming on. But anyways, that's why I stress the importance of setting a good website with a good and meaningful conversion. If you don't have a conversion that actually leads to an actual sale, you can't tell if those traffic are relevant, and you're just spraying money carelessly to nothing. And conversion, we can get in a whole topic on conversion. Like setting up the right conversion really, really matters. And I have a lot of bad experience as well as good experience on that. I'm not perfect. And I don't think anybody in the retail business is perfect. When there's a lot of, when you have a lot of customers that's still paying cash coming in, you can't really measure exactly with it. But having a good conversion setup is very, very important.
I absolutely agree. It's really difficult, although Google is making this a lot easier. And I don't know if you've noticed recently when you go down to your local Starbucks or to a business that you'll get a push notification from Google saying, at Starbucks, how do you like it? And the opportunity to kind of click through and rank the Starbucks. Has that happened to you yet?
Not yet, but we are. Facebook is forcing us to rate the places that we are when we take that place. Like, do they have a parking lot? Do they have what's their operating hours? They're kind of forcing us to answer these questions. And when we tag somebody on Facebook with the address that we are at, they would promote that place at the bottom. So I see Facebook making a strong stride in that field as well for local,
Yeah, so you're getting a bunch of companies doing this exact thing, and it's not too hard to imagine or connect those dots of what's happening on the back end, where Facebook or Google or somebody else knows where you are, and so then they can tie that in. And this is part of the advertising that comes in. Facebook's selling you display advertising, and they're saying, hey, Kevin, you are displaying for SC Storage on Facebook, and all these people have seen it. And now we can tell you the people who saw the ad, because they can track that, and then as well as the people who showed up to your location now, because they've gone in and they have tagged that, whether that person has had to rank your facility saying, hey, does it have parking or does it have security or whatever it may be, they still know that you were there, and they are able to provide reporting back to the advertiser and say, look, the advertising you ran resulted in this many people coming to your location. That's happening on a much broader and faster scale than I think people realize, and is a newer advancement on that, even in the last 6 months.
Are they trying to charge you on that? Just say if you ran a bunch of display with no click through, but that resulted in people coming to your site, are they trying to say, hey, it's because of the display on Facebook, that's why there's more traffic and we're going to charge you? Or what do you think their gameplay is?
Yeah, I think that's one direction that's going. My experience, though, has always been, whether it be Google, Bing, Yahoo, or Facebook, or any of the others, is that they want to provide value for your marketing dollars. And so I don't think of them in my daily interactions with them, I don't ever think of them as being a competitor, but rather as a partner when I'm running advertising with them. And I think it's a much better relationship that way, in that they're coming and saying, hey, look, we have a new product that we can prove drives traffic to your location. And I say, okay, great. Let's see it and let's go test it out. And if I can get customers, the right customer for less expensive or a better customer that has a higher yield, yeah, I'm willing to pay for that. And what they're trying to do is what they call get a larger share of wallet. And so the wallet being, this is my total advertising budget. My advertising budget for the month is $10,000. Google wants as much of that wallet as they can possibly get. Facebook wants as much of that wallet as they can possibly get. Bing, Yahoo, whoever that is, as well as additional marketing sources like TV, Yellow Pages, whatever it may be. And the way they do that is by providing more value. And if they can prove that their advertising drove somebody to your location, then that proves it was more valuable and that you're willing to spend more with them versus another advertiser.
Okay. So I guess we'll wrap it up for this episode. What are some of the low-hanging fruits that you see right now for just like for a guy with like 2 or 3 shops that's not haven't been really, they have a website but they haven't really focused on digital marketing? What are some of the things that they can do by themselves or whatever that can immediately impact them right now? Well, I think you can give 2 or 3, and I can give 2 or 3.
Yeah, let's go back and forth.
Okay.
I'll go first, you go second. How's that?
All right, sure.
All right, my first one would be go in and claim your listing. So a lot of businesses don't do this. So if you go into Google and you search
your listing, right?
Yes, it's your listing. So Google, Bing, Baidu, Facebook all have your business listed already. If you haven't gone in and claimed your listing, like go in, and there's a way to do that. It's pretty clear there. It'll say this listing hasn't been claimed yet. Are you the business owner? Would you like this? Go in and claim your listing. That's the first thing I would do always. And if you haven't done that, that's far, especially if you're a retail location, the number one thing you can do to help yourself out. That's my first recommendation. What's yours?
Mine is to have a very, very fast website, as fast as possible, because people turn away. And make sure they can convert or interested at your place. Set a conversion. It's just a basic. Even if you have nothing to sell online right now, just if they're interested to buy from you for a product and they can leave a telephone number or address, that's a conversion page. That's a landing page. Set that up as soon as possible and make sure that landing page is within 2 or 3 clicks of your website. So if they're going in from the index page and they want to buy something from you, they can do that knowing your address, your operational hours within 1 or 2 clicks. And having that set up right away, I think that's very important. And being mobile friendly. I guess that's 2 or 3, but that all wraps up together. And you go?
That gave me a whole list of things. We will have to have a discussion about AMP and PWA websites. In fact,
Vince, I think we should rank these like beginner. And no offense to any listeners, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that knows more about these than us, but we should rank these things, how people should take these, like are this for beginner, intermediate, or advanced level? Do you agree?
We could do that. We could also put a Facebook survey out on our page and let people decide which episode we do next based on interest is what we should do there.
Agree, something like that.
All right.
Any other low-hanging fruits?
Yeah, so the next one I would say would be test your website. And what I mean by this is there is both quantitative and qualitative testing of your website. I'm a big quantitative guy, which is run the numbers, run people through it a lot and use some testing software. We do quite a bit of that. But in this case, if you're a business owner and you have just a couple of locations or you have a single location you're driving people through, I would look at qualitative. And what I mean by that is bring some people in, family members or customers, and have them log onto your website and just sit over their shoulder. And right before they go on, give them a task. Say, hey, I want you to go buy, or I want you to find the address to the location. Or let's assume that you have a flat tire on your car and you need to buy a new tire. How are you going to do that using this website? And then just sit behind them, look over their shoulder, and watch them try to interact with your website. Encourage them to talk about their experience. What are they doing? What are they thinking? How are they going through this? If you do that 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 times, you're going to notice some themes right away on your website that, hey, this doesn't make sense. And just sit there and take notes. Don't try to help them through your website, because that's the exact opposite thing you should be doing. The website needs to act as a standalone. It needs to serve you while you're not there to talk to your customers in person. So I would just look over the shoulder, watch people use your website, find out where the sticking points are, and then work to resolve those. And we should do that at some point as well. Have people send in their websites and let's look at them.
That's great. That's great. I guess a third one would be like creating an email list. I mean, people who buy from you may be recurring customers. They may not buy from you right now. They may buy from you later. So if people call you, like have a telephone list, have an email list, start collecting it. I mean, you can once you do that, you can send regular information to them, and you can start selling them whenever you have a new product. To say if they're looking for something that we don't have right now, maybe when we do come available, these customers are there. So start collecting email lists and telephone lists, and email lists and telephone lists are also important for remarketing campaigns in the future. We can get into that in another upcoming episode. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I think that this is a big one that gets overlooked. It doesn't seem like it's something that's sexy and new because we've had email for so long now, but it's a big driver of business and it's really important. And then again, it's something that can be segmented and customized to individual customers in a big way. So we should do a whole episode on email. We could do 10 episodes on email marketing actually, and I think still not cover the topic. All right, so I agree. So email lists. So that was yours. That my next one would be tracking, and you alluded to this as well, where you have tracking, set up conversion events. I would also be tracking phone calls. So the thing that I alluded to earlier was using tracking phone numbers and how it can screw up your SEO, and it can. There are some ways to display your phone numbers that don't do that. Obviously, we frequently use JavaScript to overlay a tracking phone number on top of a hard-coded phone number on your website, which is one way to do it. There's a bunch of services out there that we should list for people that will allow you to track phone calls as they come in. And then you can use either system that looks at how long somebody's on a call or if they completed a conversion event. But you'll want to, and a lot of times in retail businesses, your website is driving phone calls. And what people don't think about often is how they answer those phone calls. So, Kevin, I have a client right now in the self-storage industry that we're driving phone calls for, and they're having their managers pick up the phone. And I have them, and somebody will call and say, hey, I'm looking for such and such a business, which isn't the business that they're calling that particular time. And so the person will say, hey, I'm looking for XYZ business. And the manager will say, that's not us. And they'll hang up the phone.
Wow.
As opposed to say, yeah, just crazy stuff. Or we run the ads for the only when it's open. So it's open from 9 o'clock to 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we turn the ads on. So they're only running at that time. And about 30% of the time, this client isn't answering the phone. So right off the bat, they're not, which is terrible, right? There's a whole bunch of things that go into that. So a lot of times in this particular type of business, retail clients, what we're doing is especially because mobile has become so prominent, we'll have a whole episode on mobile or several, is the mobile phone is actually still a phone. And so people pick it up and call, and you've got to have somebody there that can answer the phone calls, whether that be your location or a call center of some sort.
I think a lot of small retailers would like to have like their telephone number at the About Us or Contact Us, like really tucked in, really, really far behind, where they should have their telephone number broadly displayed prominently everywhere. Because a lot of people, once they can't search something that they want, most likely they would call. And if you have your telephone tucked in somewhere else, it's just going to go away. So having a telephone number is very, very important, especially retail business.
I would say that I agree. I would say it's slightly different. Most people think that they're unique, which is fine, right? But everybody thinks that their problem is unique and that they need special attention, and that's why they need a call. In your business, when they're storing something, they think, hey, I've got to store this, but I'm not sure that I'm like everybody else. I want to call and talk to somebody about it. And you have people talking to people all day long on the phone that it's not that it's not unique. It's just that you deal with it so much that it becomes commonplace. Your people still want to talk about it, and it's not generational, it's not gender, it's not age. There's other factors that drive this, that people want to talk on the phone about specific things. It's a big driver of things. What people don't realize is that I think I've seen some statistics recently where mobile advertising has increased overall spend budgets, but it's also increased phone calls by like a factor of 6 overall. So we're calling more now, and you've got to be ready to take that phone call.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we'll wrap it up in this one. We'll be setting up our website soon, and then we'll be setting up also our Facebook fan page. I guess our friend Anthony will help us with that. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to leave an email or leave a message to our fan page or website. And do rate us on the podcast. Higher rating would get us more higher ranking. And we're looking forward to making more good episodes in the future with Scott. Anything you want to add?
Appreciate it, Kevin. This is a lot of fun. No, this is a lot of fun. Looking forward to the next one.
I learned a lot today. Thank you. So see you guys again later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Digital to Foot Traffic. Join our mailing list at digitaltofoottraffic.com for more of our digital insights and strategies.
Leave us a review on iTunes or your favorite Android apps and subscribe so we'll show you the second we launch a new episode.